You are listening to the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast. And if you didn't already know that, I'm glad that I could inform you of what you've been listening to prior to this clip playing, because you may have been confused. Just like I'm confused. And Atari was confused when they waited so long to release this console. Jack Tramiel. And in case you couldn't tell by the obligatory other podcast theme music playing in the background, this is Paul from the Intellivisionaries. And when I'm not making bumpers for other podcasts like the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast that you're listening to now, I record another podcast called the Intellivisionaries with my co-hosts Rick and Will. And occasionally Virtual Will.
I think so.
And the Odyssey 2. And my son Luke.
Hi.
And my stepson Alex.
Hi.
And my wife Eugenia. And the corrections robot.
Anytime.
Which apparently has become quite popular now on other podcasts for some reason. Moving right along, back to Phil and more 7800 Game by Game podcast. Unless you turn this off right now, then that's pretty much the end of Phil and the podcast. Just saying.
Oh man, I can't believe it. My last day as a janitor, about to retire, and the boss says I have to stay late because some two big fancy wigs, some Dr. Blue Jay, and some hairy bird guy came in, and now they get to use our basketball court. I can't believe it. I just want to go home to my dear neighborhood. Oh well, hopefully this will get done relatively soon. Oh, great oogly boogly, they broke that backboard. I gotta go fix that thing. Okay, come on, Johnny. Just a few more minutes and we'll be out of here. They get another one. I just want to go. Oh, come on now. This is just ridiculous. I don't care how popular these guys are. Am I going to be here all night? I just want to go home.
On today's episode of the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast, we will be covering CX7823 touchdown football and CX7824 one-on-one basketball.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of One Dude and a Pro System. My name is Phil, I'm your host, and I want to jump right into the Edladdin Super Twin contest. If you missed it the last episode, Ed from Edladdin.com is giving away a Super Twin 78 controller through my show. What's an Edladdin Super Twin 78 controller? I'm glad you asked. It is a twin stick arcade quality controller. That's right. It has two joysticks on it close together so you can play Robotron 2084 the way it was meant to be played on your Atari 7800 at home. You can also use it as a double player joystick or a single player joystick. It is fully functional, but it was definitely made with Robotron 2084 in mind. It retails normally on his website for $149, and I know that sounds like a lot, but you have to know that Ed uses premium parts in it. He's not making a ton of money off of these. This is more a labor of love. He really enjoys the 7800 and he really likes making high quality joysticks. So you're going to get a high quality product if you buy something from Edladdin.com. Now, how can you win this premium joystick controller? Well, it's somewhat simple. All you have to do is tell me how much I improved my score on Robotron 2084 on the intermediate setting while playing it on the Atari 7800 from when I played it once with the Proline controller to using the Super Twin controller. You have to tell me how much I improved my score. And I'm going to give some hints today that I didn't give last time. Now, before I do that, let me just give you a little of the details. You have to email me your guess to Atari7800podcast.com. This is only eligible to people who have a shipping address in the US or Canada. And you'll get it free of charge if you win the contest. And if there happens to be two correct answers or two answers that are equally close, what will happen is the person who sent in the answer first, according to my email, will be declared the winner. So let me give you some hints. When I played it with my ProLine controller, here's the first hint. When I played it with my ProLine controller, I got a score of 171,325. I got a score of 171,325. That's hint one. So that gives you kind of an idea how I did with the ProLine controller, the standard controller that came with the 7800 in America. Now, when I used the Super Twin controller, I'm not going to tell you how much I scored, but I'll give you this hint. I more than doubled my score. So that should give you a ballpark figure. So if you send in a guess of 10,000 points, you're way off. You probably should have guessed more than that. So again, I more than doubled my score of 171,325. I'm not going to tell you how much more I increased my score, but it is more than double. So there you go again. Tell me how much I improved my score using the Super Twin 78 controller on the intermediate setting of Robotron 2084 for the Atari 7800 Pro system. You have to mail it to me at Atari7800podcast@AOL.com, and it has to be mailed to me by July 3rd, 2015 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I hope to announce the winner on the next episode. So, man, you need to sign up for this thing. It's not every day that you can win a $149 controller shipped to your door. This thing is great, I think. And you know what? You can also use it for Atari 2600 games. If you're just like a big Atari 2600 fan, you just want to use it for that, you could do that as well, easily. So check it out. Please send your entries as soon as possible. I hope that someone who likes the Atari 7800 and Robotron 2084, I hope they're declared the winner. It'd be really great. And I hope it's a loyal listener. That would really make me thrilled as well. Don't forget to go to edladdin.com. Check out some of his other products like the Seagull 78 adapter that lets you use Sega Genesis controllers on the Atari 7800 by using both buttons. Now, you can use the Sega Genesis controller with Atari 2600 games or single button 7800 games, but when it comes to the double button games, you're going to want that adapter. It is amazing, and it is well worth the price. But if you use the coupon code FERG, F-E-R-G, you will get 10% off your order. Just tell them that Phil sent you. All right, guys, so that's just the update, and that's my couple hints for the Edladdin contest. Let's go on to the history of Electronic Arts, just a little bit of history before we get to today's games. Trip Hawkins was the director of product development for Apple when, in the early 80s, he decided to go out on his own. He incorporated on May 28, 1982, founding Amazing Software, but after discussion with some of his advisors, who basically hated the name, he decided to change the name. He liked calling game developers software artists, and he liked the film company United Artists, so Electronic Artist was kicked around for a while until it finally became Electronic Arts. Now, a lot of his first employees came from companies like Apple and Atari and some other big companies like Xerox. And he even got Steve Wozniak to sit on his board of directors. Now, instead of dealing with distributors, as most computer developers did at that time, he wanted to sell directly to the buyers. But this took a while to establish. But in the end, it would end up with better profit margins and a more direct connection to the market they were selling to. He also changed the approach to his developers by giving them a lot of credit for their work, sharing profits with them at a greater degree than others did, and even presenting their games like record albums with developers being rock stars. Now, if you are very young and don't know what a record album is, imagine a Blu-ray disc, except it's about, 2 or 3 times bigger, and it's in a flat, big calendar. It's about the size of a calendar. Yeah, a wall calendar, not a calendar on your cell phone. I forget. People forget what calendars are. Okay, anyways, this attracted some of the best developers, which in turn helped create some great early games like Mule and Archon. They rose in the computer industry, but it wasn't until 1988 that they entered the home console market by developing Skate or Die for the NES, which was published by Ultra, and then publishing themselves Skate or Die 2 in 1990. But perhaps their most noteworthy title was 1990's John Madden Football, which really began to establish them as the king of sports, a title that they pretty much have had a stranglehold on until even today, you could argue. They created many famous series on the Sega Genesis, including the NHL Hockey Series, and you have the FIFA Soccer Series and PGA Tour Golf, and so on and so forth. By the way, did you know that the very first Joe Montana football on the Sega Genesis was also made by Electronic Arts using the John Madden engine? If you would like to learn more about that, check out my No Swear Gamer video, episode 140, where I review Joe Montana football for the Sega Genesis. It's a pretty fascinating backstory there. So from that point on, Electronic Arts would continue to just grow and grow and grow. And even to this day, they're a huge giant with series like the FIFA series still going strong, the Battlefield series, Command and Conquer was big on computers, Medal of Honor. Then you also have the Rock Band series and the Sims series of games as well. And I believe they also make a lot of the Star Wars games nowadays as well. So they just are very powerful. But as they've grown more powerful, some people have called them one of the worst places to work for. They become very known for just the poor working conditions and forcing their workers to work extra hours. Now, over time, it has improved, but then you get stories that it gets worse. Like it kind of ebbs and flows. So it's very weird how that kind of works. But they're still going strong today, as most of us know. Now, Tripp would do something interesting. He would go off on his own in 1991 to form 3DO, which was basically like a 32-bit next generation machine when the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo were still out, but before the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn came out. So it was like coming out early, and he had a different approach to it. He wanted to sell the technology to manufacturers, so he wouldn't make the systems. A manufacturer would make the system themselves, and then he tried to attract developers by only charging a $3 per game royalty, which was really low compared to what Sega and Nintendo wanted. So he was again trying to think outside the box. Now the problem with having a manufacturer develop the console is they can't eat, some of the profit in order to sell software because they're not making the software. So they had to keep it profitable for them, leading the system to be very expensive. I think at first it was like $600 when it first came out. And because the sales were poor, not a lot of software was being sold. So the software developers didn't want to make games for the 3DO anymore because they weren't making money even with the low royalties because they just couldn't sell enough of them. So later on, 3DO would just try to make just video games and stop making systems. But Tripp at this time was trying to make the games come out very quickly and within 6 to 9 months. And this basically was playing for basically poor games and poor sales as well. And that was that. And then later on, Tripp Hawkins would find a company called Digital Chocolate that focused on developing handheld video games, mobile gaming, and in 2003. And it's still around today, from what I understand, even though he left it in 2012. And from then, he's just been on numerous boards advising here and there. So there you go. That's kind of a history of Tripp Hawkins and Electronic Arts, at least some of the background history. Let's go on to Touchdown Football. Now, something interesting that I didn't know until I researched this a little bit is Touchdown Football appears to have been originally developed by Magic and not Electronic Arts, though Electronic Arts would publish it on things like the Atari 8-bit computers and I believe the Commodore 64 as well. So Touchdown Football was originally a computer football game, but it started with a Magic. So let me just give you a little synopsis of what a Magic was if you don't know. A Magic was a lot like Activision during the Atari 2600 heyday, where some developers decided to go on their own and get more recognition. And this is kind of a thread today because you see this with Electronic Arts giving developers more recognition. So they decided to follow Activision's kind of lead, if you will. They were founded in 1981 by just a whole bunch of guys, but one of the guys that helped found them was Rob Fulop, who worked for Atari, and he did some of their more memorable games like Night Driver and the Space Invaders conversion and Missile Command. And he did Demon Attack for Magic, which was a huge game. And he also worked on a Sega CD game called Night Trap, out of all games. How about that? A little interesting tidbit and trivia there. He also worked on a couple Sega CD games, Night Trap and Sewer Shark, a game that I really enjoy. I'm one of those people who like Sewer Shark. So just a little bit trivia there, but a Magic eventually became a victim of the video game crash, or the sell-off, I guess would be a better way of saying it, when businesses stopped investing, the money kind of dried up a bit, and a lot of, or basically I think all of Magic's games became property of Activision. They bought all those games. That's why if you play some Activision anthologies, you can get some Magic games, but you won't be getting Touchdown Football, I believe, on those, because I think basically Electronic Arts owns Touchdown Football, even though Magic developed it. So that's just a little background on Touchdown Football. So let's talk about the Atari 7800 port. First of all, from what I understand, this is a North American release only, which would make sense since football, at least American football, is an American sport. So sorry, or maybe it's not so sorry. We'll look at it as we get into the games. But to my friends across the pond who have not had the fortune of playing Touchdown Football. Touchdown Football came out in 1988, and according to AtariProtos.com, Scott Marshall for Imagineering Inc. was the programmer, who I really don't know anything about. He also says on AtariProtos.com that this was under development by Absolute Entertainment, and I believe we'll talk about Absolute later on. I didn't find any other connections with this ahead of time, but here you have Touchdown Football that may have had connections to Magic, Electronic Arts, and Absolute Entertainment. That's quite a threesome there. The cover art is, well, it's pretty lazy. It's basically the title screen, except I don't believe it's the actual title screen from the Atari 7800 version, because you have blue and red guys, and in the game itself they are there's blue and a black team, or is it red and black? We'll get to it. Whatever. So anyways, it's just the title screen itself, and it says touchdown in big letters, football on the field with a bunch of your video guys kind of on the line of scrimmage getting ready to hike the ball, and in little letters it says by Electronic Arts, and in the corner, at least in the shot I'm looking at, it says new, because it's still new today. I think it's kind of funny when you get an Atari game and it still says new in the corner with that yellow sticker. On the back it says action-packed 3D football, and 3D does not mean what it means today. You're not going to wear any glasses, and to be honest with you, I don't think it really looks all that 3D. And there's two screenshots. One shows you the menu screen, because everyone who wants to buy a video game wants to look at the menu screen, and the other shows you just a shot of the players on field getting ready to hike the ball. It says Touchdown Football, realistic hard-nosed football that's easy to play. You call the plays and make them happen. Realistic hard-nosed football that's easy to play. Already it's lying to us. On offense, you are the quarterback and the intended receiver. Choose your offensive formation, set your receiver patterns, and give the line blocking assignments. Throw from the shotgun, get open downfield to make the big catch, or even fake a punt. On defense, you're the roving back. Knock the receiver off his route. Drop back to intercept a pass, or storm the line on a surprise blitz. Whether playing against a friend or taking on the challenging computer opponent, you'll love the gridiron action of Touchdown Football. And again, it lies. It says for 1 or 2 players, for use with the 7800 Pro Line controllers, for Atari 7800 series systems, was there any other series, and for use with the North American or NTSC television sets only. So yeah, I like how on the back of the box it says for the Atari 7800 series of systems. Like, there never was a series of 7800 systems. It would have been interesting if there turned out to be some, but there you go. And it also says in small print that Touchdown Football is a trademark of Electronic Arts, so they own it, not a Magic. Okay, and I just looked at some screenshots because I was curious about the box art, and it's kind of interesting because it's clear to me that the box art is not the same screenshot as from the Atari 7800, so I'm guessing it's from a computer version, but it does appear that the screenshot in the Atari version still has a red team and a blue team, but for whatever reason on my TV, the blue team kind of looks more purplish than blue, but still, in the game you have a blue team and a black team, so a little bit of an error there, I guess. Let's go on to the manual. The manual is a 16-page folded manual, again in the black, white, and red ink coloring. The opening gives you a table of contents and an introduction. You call the plays. It's 4th and long with less than a minute remaining in the game. The winner gets a wild card berth in the playoffs. You're down by a field goal. You're in trouble. Your quarterback makes a perfect pass. Your receiver is wide open. And then you see the referee's arms flying up, signaling the touchdown. You're going to the playoffs. Well, okay, first of all, there's a few errors in that. There are no playoffs in this game. It's just a single game. And you don't want to be down by a field goal and try and make a field goal. And we will get there later. It tells you how to start the game. You can select either a player versus player game, player versus computer, or computer versus computer game. I'm just curious. Let me know. Did anyone ever play a video game where you can let the computer play itself and just sit back and watch it? Because I never did. I always thought that was something that, just had no interest to me whatsoever. And you can also, it says you can select the length of the quarters and whether you want the game delay penalty or not. And then a referee will come on screen after you select and flip a coin and declare who receives the kickoff. And you have no power at all over the coin flip. He will just say coin flip and this team gets the ball and you're going to do what? And even if you win the coin flip, he'll tell you who's receiving or what. So there's no choices at there. It's just basically a random way to start the game, I guess. Playing the game, offense. If you are playing offense, you'll be asked to select your formation for your team, a pass pattern for each of your receivers, a blocking direction for your blockers. Each of the 9 direction control positions represent a formation or pass pattern. Remember, 8 directions plus 1 for the home position. If you activated the game delay penalty selection when starting, the offensive play must be selected within 30 seconds. If a play is not selected within that time, then a penalty is declared against the offense. The box above the offensive player shows the current pattern or formation. Change the selection by moving the controller to any other of the 9 positions. To conceal your selection from your opponent, hold down the fire button as you move the controller. Your choice will not show on screen, but you will know what it is by the position on the controller. To select the pattern for that play, keep pushing the controller in the appropriate direction as you release the fire button. And by the way, it says you can see the selection. You're not going to see, like the chalk, the X's and O's, if you will. It'll just tell you like shotgun or receiver. It's just words. There's no picture at all when you're selecting the plays. All you see is words in that box. You can also choose from 3 blocking directions for the linemen in the same way you choose a formation patterns. Once you've selected a formation patterns, your players will break the huddle, take their position on the field, to snap the ball, press the fire button. Audibles. If you don't like the look of the defense when you reach the line of scrimmage, you can call an audible. To do this, hold the controller in any direction and press the fire button. You can then choose a new formation as well as a pass pattern and blocking pattern. When you choose an audible, your selection will not be visible to you. The defense will get a chance to change its formation as well. So a thing about audibles is when I was playing the game, I accidentally called audibles a couple times because all you have to do is move the joystick when you're pressing the button, which is the same thing you want to do to hike the ball, is just pressing the button. But in, trying to get ready for my quarterback, just moving the joystick, I audibled more than once. Running the ball. As soon as the ball is snapped to you, gain control over the quarterback. There is no running back. To run the ball, use the controller to move the QB to where you want him to go. When the QB crosses the line of scrimmage, he gets an extra burst of speed. Passing the ball. As soon as the ball is snapped, you gain control over the quarterback. If you want to pass the ball, move your quarterback back by using the controller. Press the fire button twice to pass to the receiver closest to the top of the screen and once to pass it to the receiver closest to the bottom of the screen. And this is where I want to just kind of hit my head against the wall and wonder why they didn't use the second button. One button for the top receiver, the second button for the bottom receiver. It makes no sense to me. Once the QB has thrown the ball, control changes to the receiver you have thrown to. Since the receiver probably won't be in position, be ready to move him to catch the ball. Don't try and pass to a receiver who is assigned to block. A blocking receiver is ineligible to catch a pass. So as you're calling plays, when it tells, you can pick for each receiver what kind of movement you want to do, like if you want them to streak or do a hook, but you can have them block as well, which I wouldn't recommend having them to do. By the way, when you throw a pass to the receiver, there's no X, there's nothing to really give you a firm sense of where the ball is going. You just kind of have to gauge very quickly. And as the manual says, usually the receiver's out of position. So I don't know if the receiver doesn't know what he's doing or the quarterback doesn't know what he's doing, but someone's not playing a good game because you have to work your way back to the ball a lot in this game. Defense. You can choose from 9 defensive formations, 1 for each of the 9 positions on the controller. Remember, 8 directions plus 1 for the home position. There are no patterns for the individual defensive players. The box above the defensive players tells you the currently selected formation. You can change the current selection by moving the controller in any of the 9 positions, and then it says to see the diagrams in the back. If you want to conceal your selection from your opponent, hold down the fire button as you move the controller. The selected formation will not be visible on the screen, but you will know what it is by the position on your controller. To select the formation to play, keep the controller pushed the appropriate direction as you release the fire button. If the offense breaks the huddle before you call a defensive formation, the formation will automatically default to zone defense. The computer will also select the appropriate formation for you on the field goal attempts or punts. So really quickly, it says, that if the offense snaps the ball or if the offense breaks, it's going to default you. What I found is against the computer, you don't have time to call a defensive play because the computer goes through the menu so quickly. It's like, ready, go, before you even have a time to think. So basically, I just constantly played zone defense. I didn't even try guess. After a while, I stopped even trying to call defensive plays because it just didn't matter. I wasn't fast enough. Audibles. If the offense calls an audible, you will have a chance to change your formation, but you will not be able to see your selection. As for the offensive audibles, you'll be able to determine your selection by the controller position. The only defensive player you control, the controller, is a free safety. As in pro football, he is free to move around at any time. And notice it doesn't say anything about the buttons because when you're playing the game as the safety, you don't do anything with the buttons. All you do is run into them. You cannot choose another player. The buttons are completely useless on defense once the ball is snapped. The kicking game. Kickoff. If you are the kicking team, press the fire button to kick off after all the players have taken their positions on the field. The receiver can catch the ball or pick it up on the bounce. Touchback and safeties are both possible. Punt. When in doubt, punt. You can punt the ball down by selecting the kick formation from the offensive options and then selecting the punt option. To punt, press the fire button once to snap the ball to center and press it again when the kicker receives the ball to punt. If you choose, the kicker can run with the ball instead. And I did that a couple times because I accidentally called a punt on an audible I didn't mean to call before. Field goal. Select kick formation. Then select the field goal option, pressing the fire button to snap the ball to the kicker. The kick is automatic. Extra point. The computer auto-selects the formation. Press the fire button to snap the ball. Then move the kicker towards the controller. The kick is automatic. And just a quick note about field goals and extra point. Pretty much the computer takes over these and never makes them. I never saw one extra point or field goal made when I was playing the game. I'm sure it happens at random, but most times out of not, it doesn't work. You cannot kick points in this game. Blocking a kick. The defense can block any field goal or extra point with a rushing attack. Select a blocking formation for a punt will increase your chances of blocking a punt, but eliminate any chances of a run back if one is possible. Penalties. There are 2 5-year penalties that can be called by the referee and cannot be declined. Delay a game on the offense when you don't call the play within 30 seconds, and defense offsides. Strategy tips. When the computer is playing defense, it can remember for a short time any plays you call frequently. If it spots a familiar pass play, chances are you'll be intercepted. So keep the computer player on its toes and mix up your offensive plays. I don't know how well it really does that. When playing the running game, follow your blockers and run to daylight. When you are playing the game for the first time, use the shotgun formation and streak pass patterns a few times to get used to the passing game. When playing defense, play bump and run with the receivers. Try a trick play. An effective one is a fake punt, if it's possible and embarrassing to the defense when it works. Play selection. The home team always starts from the left side of the field in the first quarter of the game. At the end of each quarter, the team automatically switch sides. And I'll just interject here. And you have to wait. And they don't go very fast. You have to wait a long time when they switch sides, especially if they're on one end of the field going in the other. It's just crazy. Why couldn't it be automatic? I don't know. The next 3 pages show the defensive plays. Offense moving from left to right, the offensive plays, offense moving from left to right, and the offensive passing and blocking plays you can use. When the defensive and offensive action shifts directions, the play formations will then be mirror images of the plays shown. To pick the center play, do not move the controller. To select a different play, move the controller in a direction of the arrow pointing to the play you want to use. Select an offensive kick play by moving the controller down and pressing the fire button. Then select the play you want to use by moving the controller in the direction of the arrow. The defensive kick play formation is an automatic selection when your opponent selects an offensive kick play. And then the next few pages are diagrams, and they show you, the first page is the defensive formations. And I don't even think this is on Atari Age. I'm looking at a manual in front of me. And it shows you just what the formations look like. Like you got prevent left, blitz, prevent right, tight left, zone, tight right, monster left, goal line, monster right. And then it shows you the kick. as well. And it's just really, you look at these diagrams and man, I guess I got spoiled playing John Madden on Sega Genesis. I wish these diagrams could have been on screen. I mean, they do that in Tecmo Bowl, right? And this game's similar to Tecmo Bowl. I don't know why they couldn't have done this on screen. Then they show you the offensive formation. So you have I right, split T, I right again, slot left, shotgun, slot right. I think one of the I rights is supposed to be I left. I don't know, but that's what the manual says. Strong left, then strong right. Then if you also got a shotgun, and if you press down, you got your kick plays, field goal left, punt, and field goal right. And then it shows you the blocking. So it's really crazy. So you call a play, and then if you're on offense, you have to tell what you want your receivers to do, each one. So you can have the receiver flag post left, streak flag post right, sideline left, sideline right, button hook, safety valve left, safety valve right, and block but don't pass. And then after you tell each receiver, so there's 2 receivers, what to do, then you have to select what you want your line blocking to do. And again, there's no diagrams. This is all just words on the screen. You can either have them block to the left, straight, or to the right. So talk about, I guess you could call it a lot of depth, but it's just too much for this game. It's just not entertaining to call plays at all. And then, of course, for scoring, you got 6-point touchdowns, 1 point extra points, field goals are 3 points, safeties are 2, and don't expect to get a lot of extra points and field goals when playing the game. The cartridge is, again, just your standard color cartridge with the box art, which is also the title screen on the front of the cartridge. The graphics in this game is very basic. The field, you can tell it's somewhat slanted. Again, it kind of looks like Tecmo Bowl. And let's see, you got 6 players on each side of the ball. You have the blue versus the black. Usually it's blue versus red, so I guess it's refreshing that you have a black team. But on my TV, I don't know what it is, if it's just my system because of the way it was modded for AV, but the field looks kind of more of a blue-green than a green, and the blue team looks kind of purplish. That might be my team. When you score a touchdown, the guy does a little dance, and you see a cheerleader who's bigger than the football player at the top of the screen. But other than that, there really isn't much graphically to this game. Now, musically speaking, at the beginning of the game and during kickoffs, you hear a John Philip Sousa march. Now, originally, I couldn't place the name of it. I wanted to say Stars and Stripes Forever, but it wasn't that. And I think AtariProtos.com says it's Liberty Bell March, but I'm pretty sure that it's Washington Post March. And if you ever were in marching band or in a high school band, you might be familiar with that. And then other than that, it's just some very basic bleeps and bloops. Nothing impressive at all here. Rarity-wise, both Atari Age and Digital Press agree. They give it a 2 out of 10, making it a pretty common game. Over at Atari Age, there was 3 external reviews. They had an average score of 36%, with a score of 40%, 58%, and a very bad 10%. So this is a very low-rated game. Over on eBay, the game just isn't up a lot, and it doesn't sell often. There was 2 new copies that sold, one for $28, one for $14, and there was no other copies that were sold as far as complete or loose or whatnot. If you want to get a loose cartridge, the cheapest on eBay right now is $7, and that's free shipping, and the cheapest complete copy is $10.45. So it doesn't look like people often buy this game. It seems a little less common than maybe Atari Age would have you believe, but at the same time, the demand is not very strong at all for it. And over at the High Score Club, this game was not covered. I did not have touchdown football as a kid. As a matter of fact, I just opened up a new copy that I had laying around here. So, it was the first time I've opened a new copy. It was kind of cool to open a new Atari 7800 game again. Everything looked nice and pretty inside. I have opened up new games before where the stuff looks junky because I think like a hole gets in there. Maybe, I don't know, water or something can make marks on it. But no, I had a new copy. It was kind of cool to open up a new copy. But that was about the coolest part about it. So that is touchdown football in a nutshell. Let's go on to one-on-one basketball. It can only get better from here. One-on-one basketball started as a 1983 Electronic Arts computer game programmed by Eric Hammond. It started on the Apple II, but it also appeared on several other computers, including the Atari 8-bits, Commodore 64, Amiga, and it also appeared on the ColecoVision. Throughout the early 80s, it was Electronic Arts' best seller. It also was the first computer game with celebrity endorsements. According to some sources, the concept came from Trip Hawkins' recollection. According to some sources, the concept came right from Trip Hawkins himself, as he recalled a 1960s televised one-on-one sports themed show. In 1988, it was followed by Jordan vs. Bird, which appeared on computers, the Sega Genesis, and the NES. One-on-one basketball for the Atari 7800 came out in 1987. I couldn't find out who programmed it. For the box, you have basically the street art, which is very similar to the computer box art. I don't think it's identical. I think on the computer box, Larry Bird might be sitting, but you have basically Dr. J and Larry Bird just, standing side by side, looking really tough. Against the backdrop, you have like this brick wall full of graffiti, and I don't think Larry Bird has ever looked as tough as this art right here, or is this picture. It's just a picture. It's not really, art. I guess art's not justice. And it says one-on-one in like a chalk yellow kind of lettering on the top. And you have Super Game Cartridge in the corner, which doesn't really make sense in this game because technically Super Game cartridges are supposed to be the first time a game appeared on a system, and it previously appeared on the ColecoVision, so I guess they're just ignoring that. On the back, it says Slam Dunk Basketball Action, and it has a huge screenshot of Larry Bird making a very short jumper as Dr. J looks on, and Larry Bird is beating him quite soundly at a score of 12-3. And it says this: play basketball with Larry Bird or Julius Dr. J. Irving. Choose one All-Star as your opponent. You become the other one, then jump, shoot, and win. The amazing sports game features realistic offensive and defensive moves, fatigue factors, hot streaks, a shot clock, and even instant replay and a shattering backboard. Superb graphics and exciting sound effects put you right on the court. Award-winning action game developed with the assistance of Julius Irving and Larry Bird. And on the computer box, on the back of it, the original one, they actually gave credit to Julius Irving and Larry Bird along with Eric Hammond. I think they all took a picture together. More complex game patterns, varied strategies, and excitement than ever before for one or two players, 4 skill levels for the Atari 7800 with the Proline controller. So don't use the Europad on this one. All right, the manual is a 6-page folded manual, again, black and white with a little bit of red mixed in. And of course, the cover is just a black and white version of the box art, which actually looks more grittier. I actually almost prefer the black and white photo to the color one. I think it makes it look like a tougher game. You're out on a dream court for a hot game of one-on-one. You're the Bird, or you're Dr. J. And that's the last decision you'll have to make. You'll have much time to make. You can play against the computer or challenge a friend. Your capabilities and your opponents will be just like those of All-Stars Larry Bird or Julius Dr. J. Irving. The computer knows their shooting percentages, guarded and unguarded, and their pet shots. Your scoring ability will depend on your timing, how effectively you're being guarded, and where you're shooting from. Like the game of basketball, one-on-one rewards you for playing with your head as well as your hands. Master the joystick moves, sharpen your timing, hone your reflexes until you can handle the pro level, and don't let the other guy outthink you. Then it tells you how to start up the game, including one thing I never tried. It says press select for slow motion play, press it again to resume normal play. So I never tried that. I guess you can play the game in slow motion. Game options. Each time you start a one-on-one session, the game options menu appears. This is where you choose your gameplay options. Move your joystick handle forward or back to move from line to line on the menu. Push the handle right or left to move from option to option on the line. The option you're on will flash. Select it by pressing either joystick button. Play ball. You could choose to resume the last game, play a new game, or watch a demonstration game. Select an option from this line after selecting options from all other lines. Since pressing the joystick button here will start the game. Select game. Choose your game level, Park and Rec, Varsity, College, or Pro. Shots are easier to block and make in Park and Rec level, hardest at the Pro level. Play mode. Choose a 2-player game or choose to play against Dr. J or Larry Bird. The computer becomes the all-star listed. You take the role of the other star. Select end of game. Choose to play from for a set amount of time or to a set score. If you choose a time game screen appears. You'll then choose how long the quarters will be, 2, 4, 6, or 8 minutes. If you choose play to a set score and play to a set score screen appears. Select either a traditional 21-point game or set your own game score. If you select play to XX points, a score will appear at the bottom of the screen. Push the joystick handle left to reduce the score or right to increase it. Possession. Winners out means the player who just made the basket will stay on the offense. Losers out means that the other player will receive the ball. Playing the game. Move the joystick handle to move your player around the court. The player moves in the same direction you move with the handle. How nice. When you have possession of the ball, you can press the right joystick button to call a timeout, up to 3 times per player per game. A timeout lasts several seconds, then the gameplay resumes automatically. And I probably will say going on, but that if your player's getting fatigued, it will refresh them. But it also refreshes the other guy as well. Offense. Press the left joystick button to start a jump shot. Release it to shoot the ball towards the basket. A quick press on the button causes you to spin 180 degrees. If the shot clock, upper right corner of the screen, runs down before you shoot, a turnover results. So here's what you do with the right button. It does 2 functions, which might be a little confusing at first. What I would advise is if you're heading towards the basket, not making a shot right away, and you have the ball, quickly press it to turn around to put your back against the other player, because if you're facing forward, they're more likely to steal. And then when you're ready to shoot, you can actually, I believe if you hold the button, if you're close to the basket, you can do a turnaround jump shot, which works pretty well. With defense, when the offensive player is dribbling, press your left joystick button to go for a steal. When the offensive player is shooting, press your left button to block the shot. When the shot is in the air, press your left button to go for a rebound. If you get the rebound, you must take the ball out beyond the free throw line before you shoot. Illegal moves. Offense loses the ball for traveling, failure to release the ball during a jump, charging, running into a defensive player when he's standing still, failing to shoot before the shot clock reaches 0. Defensive fouls are hacking, hitting the offensive player, and that happens kind of intermittently when you are trying to steal. Blocking, physically moving into the offensive player, reaching in, going for a steal but fouling instead. So maybe I'm confused with hacking. If the defensive player has committed fewer than 5 fouls, the offensive player gets the ball out of bounds and the shot clock is reset. If the defensive player has committed 5 fouls or more, the offensive player goes to the free throw line. He shoots 1 free throw. If he makes it, he shoots another. If the defensive player fouls while the offensive player is shooting and the basket is good, the offensive player goes to the free throw line for 1 free throw. If the offensive player didn't make the basket, he gets 2 free throws. When the ball goes out of bounds, the shot clock is reset and play resumes to the top of the free throw circle. Fatigue and hot streaks. Continuous running and jumping tires out a player. Dribbling slowly and in place gives some energy back to both players. Calling a timeout gives a full rest to both players. Energy loss and gain are reflected by the changes in each player's fatigue bar. Dr. J's is in the lower left, Bird's is in the lower right. The longer the bar, the more fatigued the player. Tired players don't move as quickly as fresh or rested players, and they don't defend or shoot as well. There is no hot streak bar, but the opportunity to get hot, to shoot 4 or 5 baskets in a row and then make a shot from anywhere is built into the game. You'll have to feel when it is happening to you and act accordingly. Now this I didn't really notice playing the game, but I don't doubt it's in there. And also it reminds me a lot of NBA Jam way before NBA Jam came about. So I'm pretty sure that NBA Jam took a lot of inspiration from one-on-one basketball. Instant replays and shattering backboards. Sometimes you'll make an especially nice play and the computer will agree by freezing the action and showing you a slow motion instant replay, which is cool. You'll also be pleased with yourself when a particularly ferocious dunk shatters the backboard, and that's true as well. Scoring. Just like Pro Ball, a basket made behind a 3-point line gives you 3 points, regular gives you 2, and a free throw gives you 1. All-star strategy. As Dr. Dre, you're a step quicker when driving to the basket. When you're in close, your moves are fancier, you can stretch higher and farther, and you can hang in the air longer. As the Bird, you're bigger and stronger, and so you're better rebounder. Your defensive game is more physically intimidating. You've also got a better outside shot. Dribble with your ball to the back to the other player, making it harder for him to steal the ball. Shoot while jumping away from the basket. A fall away shot is harder to block. Get between the other player and the basket when going for the rebound. And those are the hints, and that's the end of the manual. The cartridge, just as most cartridges at this point, is a nice color label that replicates the box art. Graphically speaking, I think the game looks pretty good. Unlike other versions where the basketball floor is just black, they actually put some wood on the floor, which I think looks nice. The guys kind of look a little bit cartoony, especially if you just look at a still shot, but I think during the game it actually works out pretty nicely. And of course, I like the effect of the backboard breaking and shattering and coming down. Music and sound-wise, not a whole lot to talk about, but overall I think it gets the job done. At Atari Age and Digital Press, they both give it a Rarity 1, making this the most common type of game you can find. As far as Atari Age external reviews go, there is 4 for a 72% average with a high of 78 and a low of 60, and I feel like a weatherman right now. As far as the Atari Age High Score Club, Hammer 25 has the highest scoring game ever with 450 points scored in a game. And I think I did the math, and that's something like 150 free throw or 3-point shots, even though he may have done other shots. But I imagine you just do a bunch of 3-point shots. On eBay, loose copies go for about $4 or $5. New and complete copies were going for about $9 to $10. But on my Facebook page, I posted that Amazon had some for under $6, and that included the Prime eligible free shipping thing. And that's where if you have Prime, you get it shipped for free. Or if you spend $35, they'll ship it for free with the rest of your order. And last time I checked, they still had some in stock, even though I believe someone on the Facebook page said that they bought it that way. Now, I did own this game growing up, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I also remember bringing it to on summer vacation to play with my cousin. My cousin was more the athlete than me. I was more the indoor kid. But with video games, the playing surface kind of changed, and I was able to edge him out usually on the athletic style video games. But it was a lot of fun, and I just remember having a lot of good time, both playing by myself or with my cousin or friends. And both of these games appeared in Atarian magazine. Let's see, in the first issue, in the top 10, I think, there it is, 101 Basketball was number 5. Touchdown Football was nowhere to be seen. In the tip and trick section in the first issue from 101 Basketball, we have this tip from Aaron from Simi Valley, California. It says, on the 7800, when playing against a computer on the pro level, you can make quick steals by holding the controller down and going for the steal immediately after you score. Also, if your fatigue level is high, turn your back to your opponent and bounce the ball slowly. If he goes for the steal, most of the time he will be called for reaching in. So thank you, Aaron, for that hint. In the second issue of Atarian magazine, and by the way, the Atarian magazine only lasted 3 issues, 101 Basketball just kind of dropped out of the top 10, but Touchdown Football showed up at number 6. And let's see, in issue 3 in the top 30, 101 Basketball righted the wrong and came back at number 7, and Touchdown Football was nowhere to be seen in the top 10. However, Touchdown Football got a full page treatment going over just the game itself. Now, when they did the full page treatments, the reviews basically gave you an idea of what it's like. Imagine reading the back of the box, except with more words and, hey, buy this game. And I wanted to just highlight some things that the author, Jerome Starch, said. For instance, he says, Touchdown Football has several penalty options. For example, you can have a 30-second clock, which penalizes the team that takes too long to select the play. On defense, you can be called for offsides. So several evidently equals 2 options. So remember that. If there's 2 options, that means several, because there's only 2 penalties in the game. And then he ends it saying, okay, fans, the scoreboard reads 4th down and 1 on the 35-yard line. The coach says it's your decision. Do you go for it, try a long field goal, or punt? And of course, if you try a field goal, nothing will happen. It says Touchdown Football. It's everything you ever dreamed about a football simulation. Gut-wrenching realism, superb playability, spectacular graphics, Gatorade not included. And so, yes, this guy was definitely drinking something, and it wasn't Gatorade if he's going to say that Touchdown Football was that great of a game. Also, in issue 3, in the tips and tricks section for 101 Basketball, it says, when playing against the computer-controlled Larry Bird, you can often score by turning your back and holding against him. while holding move to the right then to left where you can get under the basket and shoot. And that was from Mark from Franklin Park, Illinois. And that is it as far as both games go. Let's go to listener feedback.
Yay. Time for feedback. Please send us more at Atari7800podcast@aol.com.
Over at Atari Age, I asked for feedback on these two games, and I asked them to rate the games on a 4-point scale. The highest rating is a Hall of Fame game. That means it's a top 5 game on the system. Then comes the solid rating for a solid game. Meh for a game that's not the worst ever, but just doesn't really excite you. And then trash for a bottom 5 game on the system. And Jinx said Touchdown is trash. Not worth the energy even mentioning. Yet he mentioned it. Thanks, Jinx. One-on-one is solid. Great fun for 2 players, which may not occur this late in life, which is true. It's really hard, at least I found, to find another player to play retro games with in person. Controls seem just right. Could use more variations and better sound and so on, but for what it is, it's all right. Retro Gamer 81081 says touchdown football is trash. Need no more explanation as it is. One-on-one basketball is definitely a solid game. Best sports game on the Pro system and a great game to duke it out with a friend. Always love smashing the backboard and the janitor mumbling in a gibberish tone. I totally agree with that. Drac is back, says touchdown, trash for me. I'm getting kind of a vibe with this. Like the title screen, dislike everything else. One-on-one, meh, it's mildly amusing, I guess. I actually liked Basketball better, even though it's not really a sports game, and we will cover Basketball way down the line. Desert Jets said, I can only comment on one-on-one. For me, it's a solid game. The thing I can fault it for is that it feels a bit slow, but even against a computer, this is a game I can sit down and play for a few rounds for 10 to 20 minutes and have more fun than I should be having. I suspect it is probably better with another human as your opponent. I think that goes for just about every 2-player game for the most part. Gambler172 says, hi guys, 101 is solid and touchdown is trash for me because I don't like football and I don't know the rules exactly. Greetings, Walter. Well, even if you do know the rules, it's still probably trash. Sean says, both are trash in my opinion. Wow. Toilet Tune says, touchdown football has one redeeming feature. You can set it to computer versus computer and read a book instead. One-on-one is not bad enough to complain about, not good enough to play. Interesting. Ham R25 says, touchdown football would have been meh, except the impossible extra points and field goals made the game trash. One-on-one was my favorite 7800 game, but I've always been a huge basketball fan. It's probably the best Atari sports game of all time, but that's not saying a whole lot. Kappa Guy 99 says, I crunched Kurt Vendel's sales figures over the weekend. The ones he posted a few years ago for the 25th anniversary of the 7800. Measured by net revenue, One-on-One was the second highest selling game, 153,000 copies sold for $1.778 million. If you go based off a sheer number of cartridges sold, One-on-One was the 9th highest selling game. This is over the entire 86 to 91 period. Point being that it likely sold at a higher price compared to many other 7800 games. Touchdown football was not nearly as successful and only sold about 30,000 copies. And I asked him where to find that, and he gave me a thread to follow. And I'm going to try and crunch the numbers, but when I downloaded the numbers that was there, it came in a format that my computer doesn't recognize, so I need to kind of play with it to figure out how I can easily read the figures. Okay, Soul Blazer, who also hosts the SNES podcast, says touchdown football. As I mentioned in other podcasts, I'm a huge football fan, so I was eager to try this out. I was surprised to learn when I did research on this game before playing it that it was originally made by Electronic Arts and was also ported to the Atari 8-bit computer line, the C64, and PC. I'm not sure who handled the port of the 7800, but man, is this bad. The opening song is nice and the sound effects get the job done, but the graphics are terrible, not at all indicative of what could have been done on the 7800. The controls are sloppy and don't feel responsive at all. The gameplay feels really constipated and only 6 players for each team. Play calling is about the only good thing I can say gameplay wise. It's playable, but I think even real sports football for the 2600 was better. Meh rating for me. Surprised you didn't trash it. One-on-one basketball, another port of an Electronic Electronic Arts game, and this one was much better made in its original format and ported to the 7800 much better as a result. The graphics look a bit crude, but are detailed enough, the sound effects are nice, and the controls are easy to get a hang of. I really love all the options for gameplay and difficulty on the option screens. The instant replay is a nice touch, and the fatigue meter, fouls, and free throws all add a good touch of realism. The janitor cleaning up the glass from the smashed backboard is one of the best features in an early sports game. This is one of the best one-on-one sports games made, and still as much fun to play today as it was when it first came out. Solid rating for me. And Greg and anyone else on the forums, feel free to send in some audio submissions. I hear Greg sending some cool ones over to Ferg, and so Greg, you're more than welcome to send them to me. Trevor says touchdown football is a trash game for me. I cannot think of one redeeming aspect of it. One-on-one basketball rates as a meh game against a computer opponent. However, if you have a friend or family member to play against, it is a solid title. Save 2600 says touchdown football, trash. One-on-one, a bit slow, but a solid game, I'd say. Was my favorite basketball game until NBA Jam came out. Golden Wheels says, I haven't played touchdown football since I already heard people say it was trash. I have a fondness for the XE version of one-on-one for years, though I found that it was true of the 7800 version as well. I call it solid. I like the shooting mechanics, such as it is, and the sliding way you have to back up and slide by your opponent actually kind of feels like basketball. And who doesn't love ticking off the janitor? Uyama Family, who set a lot of records on the high score challenges, if I remember correctly, says touchdown football is a trash game. It's the 7800 game, which I hate. One-on-one basketball, solid game. Between these two games, I prefer basketball. Well, I can see there. And then Soul Blazer came back and said, just to tack on something to my original feedback, I think the only reason why I elevated touchdown football to trash to meh is because I love football games and I love sports games. So I can get a little fun out of this. If you don't like either of those, though, I can totally see the hate. On Facebook, it's either Nicola or Nikolai, sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly, said, yes, not a massive sports game fan, but one-on-one is great fun. Follow this up with a game of basketball, and you have a winning formula for a good night. Interesting. I am disappointed to say I don't know anything about touchdown, though I give this a solid rating too. Herb says, don't have touchdown football, but one-on-one basketball is surprisingly fun. I'm by no means a sports game connoisseur, but for a quick game, especially with friends, this one is a lot of fun. It's a hilarious little surprise when you dunk, smash the backboard, and the little custodian guy comes up and sweeps up the mess. All in all, I give this one a solid. So I'm starting to think that maybe the janitor guy should have become the mascot for the Atari 7800, just like they had Alex Kidd or Wonder Boy or whoever on the Master System and Mario on the NES. I think he could have held up. Okay, I got some text submissions. Now, remember, if you send me a text or audio submission, I enter you in a contest, and every once in a while I draw a name out of the hat, basically, and they win their choice of a game or something else that I have from a selection I have that I ship anywhere in the U.S., and I'll be doing a drawing soon and announcing the winner next time. Found this, this is from, Wade from Inversitaski. He said he found a reference about Froggo and basically found out who was the head, and the head was Donald R.U. And I did a little extra work on that. Now, I wasn't able to find any contact information on him, but it turns out that he was the president of U.S. Games for a while as well. U.S. Games was at one point owned by Quaker, the oatmeal people, and made some games on the 2600, including such classics as Sneak and Peek, I believe, and also Space Jockey and some other ones. I think they made some good ones. I think they made Towering Inferno as well. I got another message from Rick from the Intellivisionaries podcast. He just wanted to know if I had any insight on when the new multi-cart for the 7800 might be available, and I don't know. So if anyone knows anything about that, just give me a heads up and let me know, and then Rick can know as well. And now it's time for everyone's favorite part. That's right. It's time for an audio submission from Shinto. So let's see what Shinto has to say in this edition of Shinto Says.
I used to be into basketball, probably because my brother was. I even played basketball in college. Not for the actual team, mind you, no, with my friends in the practice gym after class when nobody else was using it. And there are many great basketball video games, too. I played a lot of Rim Rockin' Basketball and NBA Jam in the arcade, NCAA Basketball on the Super Nintendo, a PC game called Dream Team 3-on-3 Challenge that probably nobody else has heard of. But the one that I enjoyed most was one-on-one basketball on the Atari 7800. Larry Bird and Dr. J. My brother was almost always Dr. J, and I was a Celtics fan, so I was almost always Larry Bird. I did get to see Larry Bird play once. I went to a Celtics game, so that was cool. One-on-one it's just a blast to play, especially against another human. Executing spins, jump shots, fades, cool slow-motion instant replays, and the best part of all, of course, shattering the backboard, where the janitor comes out and swears at you Q*bert style. It's a lot of fun, it plays well, and my brother and I had some pretty fierce matches. What's recorded in the high score binder are not fierce matches between the two of us, though, but rather my brother against the computer. In the Park and Rec skill level, my brother beat the computer, I kid you not, 872 to 23. That was on March 21st of 1990. On the varsity skill level, he didn't have quite as easy a time, but he still beat the computer 129 to 22 on March 31st, 1989. I'm going to give this game a solid rating. I'm not big into sports games, but of that genre, I think this one might be my favorite. Way down in the list of favorite sports games, though, is Touchdown Football. The title screen is awesome. I had some friends over in the late 80s or so and was showing off some of our 7800 games, and we came to Touchdown Football. My plan was that I would just show them the title screen, maybe listen to a few notes of the song, and then quickly move on to a different game. Alright, here's the title screen, and now we're done. Something like that, but no such luck. They wanted to see it. The actual game. Ugh. My brother and I certainly put some time into Touchdown Football. You know, you buy a game, you want to get your money's worth out of it. So here's what I like about Touchdown Football. I like that one of the teams had black jerseys and white helmets, which is quite a departure from the usual red versus blue color scheme. There are some nice little animation touches like the coin flip, the place kicker holding up his arm before kickoff, and the way your blockers form up around you when you run back a kick. Play selection is okay. We got to know plays pretty well and could make our selections fairly quickly. But the game moves so slowly, so dreadfully slowly, and the animation, while it's well defined, it's choppy. The scrolling is choppy. I don't think I've ever hit a field goal. Word is that it's impossible. Overall, I think this is a decent port of a poor game. It looks better on the 7800 than it does on other platforms. I played a little of the Atari 8-bit computer version, and it's even slower than the 7800. I can't really speak for the Commodore 64, though, since I don't have one of those, but I'm going to rate this game meh. It's thoroughly meh. I happen to have uncovered, and this is an Atari 7800 game-by-game podcast exclusive, the official lyrics to Touchdown Football, which I was going to perform for you now, but I recorded it and it sounded terribly unflattering, plus the tempo is hard to match, so I won't put you through that. Instead, I'm going to do a dramatic reading of the lyrics, which you can put to the music in your head if you like. Here we go. Let's go and play some touchdown football. We will be running very slow and missing every field goal. We will enjoy some touchdown football. As long as we stop with the best thing, and that is the awesome title screen. Well, Phil, I think that's enough from me for one episode. I will say that, in general, sports games on Atari consoles are kind of hit and miss, and this is the perfect example. One hit, one miss. See you next time.
Oh, man, come on, Shinto. Now I want to hear the song. You gotta give me the song, man. That's awesome, as always. I'm surprised that you said that Touchdown Football on the Atari 8-bits was worse than the 7800 version. I didn't think it could get much worse. I wonder if the original versions that came out before that were just as dreadful. It's hard to imagine, because why would you port such a bad game? But, you know, I guess it's possible. Without doubt. Cool high score binder submissions there from your brother and how well he did. By the way, when I gave the high score challenge, I believe that was on the varsity level as well. So 872 points on the Park and Rec's difficulty. That is something else. Thanks again, Shinto. And don't forget, you can send in your submissions as well and get entered into a contest to win a game that I have in my kind of duplicates collection. Just send it to Atari7800podcast at AOL.com. That's Atari7800podcast at AOL.com. I'd really like to get some more. So if you have some, whether it's for games I'm about to cover or whether it's about the system or a game I've already covered, please send it in. I'd be very, very grateful. It would just be awesome. I'd like to get some more submissions before the show runs its course. Send them in today. By the way, if you've ever been interested in becoming a podcaster, one of the greatest things you can do just to get used to hearing your voice and to, recording and whatnot is send in audio submissions to shows that take them. It really helps you. I think one of the hardest things for most podcasters and YouTubers to get used to is hearing their voice. I think most people, not all, but most people hate the sound of their own voice. I do. And I know a lot of other people who record their voice have the same thing, and you just kind of got to get used to it. It does get better over time. You get used to it, just like the people who love you, your family and your friends, they get used to it as well. And usually we think it's worse than it really is, just because we don't hear it the way it sounds with the way that our brains and ears and the echoing and all that stuff works. But that's for a different podcast, some scientific podcast. All right, so that wraps up feedback. Let me just share with you real quickly my thoughts on these two games. I'm going to rate one-on-one basketball as solid. Like I said, had lots of fun with this one growing up and still have fun with it today. And it's a game that I think I heard other people say as well. It kind of takes you off guard. You don't expect it to be as good as it is. As a matter of fact, a long time ago, well, not that long ago, on the No Swear Gamer YouTube show I reviewed Double Dribble. Now, I didn't play Double Dribble growing up on the NES. I know a lot of people are very nostalgic for it. But I'll tell you this, I definitely like one-on-one basketball a whole lot better than Double Dribble, or than just Double Dribble today. So I would highly recommend this game to people who haven't played it before. Okay, touchdown football. I'm surprised Shinto didn't put it in the trash can, but I'm going to. Touchdown football is trash. And Greg, I like football games, but I didn't like this one at all. I just found it very slow-paced, broken. I don't like the play calling. There's just nothing I really like. I really don't like how when you throw the ball, it's kind of like you have to figure out where the receiver's going. There's ways they could have improved the game if you could have seen the plays, or if there was like some sort of, yellow X where the ball was going. And I agree with what Soul Blazer said, that real sports football on the 2600 actually plays better than this. So if you want to play a sports football game on the 2600, try that first. I hear Super Football is pretty good. I don't really like real sports football that much, but I at least can play it and run up a score really easily. Just avoid touchdown football unless you're just a serious collector. I don't think anyone gave it higher than a meh. I don't think anyone gave it a solid. I'd be wondered. And if anyone ever scored a field goal on it, let me know. I'm just curious. I wonder if that's like, we could do a Mythbusters thing. Can you score a field goal on touchdown football? The thing is, I don't want to play it anymore, so I don't want to keep trying. So there you go. That is my thoughts on those two games. Now, I would appreciate it if you would go to YouTube and check out my No Swear Gamer YouTube channel. That's right. Just search for the No Swear Gamer. Recently, I posted reviews of Tank Command on 7800, which we already covered. Typically, when I cover a game on the podcast, I'll put up a video review a week or two later. I also covered Home Run and Real Sports Baseball, both for the 2600, and I've been going through some controller options as on the 7800 as well, including doing the Pro Line controller review and a Europad review as well. And I also covered Phoenix for the 2600 and Ice Hockey for the NES. Those are some of my recent reviews. Okay, let me go to my binder. Let's see what's coming up on the podcast. Don't forget to send me in your contest entries for the Edladdin Super Twin 78. Do not delay. Hey, just guess a number. You never know. Just guess a number. Remember, I scored over 170,000 points, and I definitely improved my score by at least that much. So just come up with a number and send it to me. You might just win. All right, next up, let's see. Episode 13 is going to cover summer games. How fitting, summer games and Super Huey. Yep, that's right. There's a video game with the name Super in the title that did not appear on the Super Nintendo. Episode 14 is going to be Impossible Mission, how fitting of a title, and Real Sports Baseball, the 7800 version. And then episode 15 will be Cracked and Dark Chambers, which has a real interesting backstory. So there you go, guys. Thanks, everyone, for giving me a little part of your day. And remember, games are fun, but always keep first things first. I'll catch you later.
You have been listening to the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast. We are a member of the Retro Junkies Network. Follow us on Facebook. Listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher and YouTube. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye now.
Not only that, but we were also And this was news to me because I didn't even know that it happened, but it turns out we were guests on the Atari 7800 Game by Game podcast. So
right at the end.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. It was a pleasure being there with you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us on your show back in the... I'm giggling like a little girl. So...
Glad we could talk about Mr.
Yes. We need to get all of these video game podcast tropes together and just tear into them on one episode.